Hello everyone. Honestly, I never imagined I'd be sitting here talking about something like this. Even now, my hands still tremble a little just thinking about everything. You know how sometimes life seems to be on a steady path. Maybe not perfect but comfortable. You have your daily routine, your special person, your shared laughter, and even those small annoyances that somehow become part of your bond. That was my life. That was us, me and Sarah. We had been married for 5 years, together for 10. People looked at us and thought, they've got it all figured out. We were solid, reliable, maybe even a little dull to be honest. But dull felt secure. Dull felt like forever. It turns out forever can break in a moment. And that dull, dependable feeling, I'd do anything to have it back. It didn't begin with some dramatic event. It rarely does, right? It was more like a slow, creeping chill, a quiet change in the feeling of our home. Like the heat was being slowly turned down, degree by invisible degree, until one day you wake up freezing and wonder when the warmth disappeared. Sarah started to change. First, it was little things. Things that seemed easy to explain. She began working later than usual. Big project at work, she'd say, waving it off as she dropped her bag by the door. The sound echoed through what now felt like an empty hallway. I thought, she's just focused, driven. That determination was one of the things I had loved about her. Then there was her phone. Before, it used to lie face up on the table, buzzing now and then with messages from her mom or friends. Suddenly, it was always face down or in her pocket, or in her hand. She began taking calls in other rooms, gently closing the door behind her. When I'd walk in unexpectedly, she'd end the call quickly, with a flicker of emotion crossing her face. Surprise, maybe irritation, before she covered it with a calm smile. Just work, she'd say. Or, spam caller. And I'd nod because really what could I say? Accuse her of what? A feeling. A suspicion. Sound paranoid. But that feeling wouldn't leave. It grew slowly, curling in my gut like something toxic. She started canceling our date nights. Too tired, she'd say, already under the covers, her back to me. Conversations became awkward. Her replies were short. The warm closeness we shared, the casual touches, the inside jokes, they faded. It felt like I was living with a polite roommate, not a wife. Her eyes no longer crinkled with laughter. Instead, her lips were tight with a tension I hadn't seen before. I tried to talk to her. I really did. So many times. Sarah, is everything okay? You seem distant, I'd ask gently, careful not to sound like I was blaming her, trying to hide how scared I was. Sometimes she looked genuinely confused, other times slightly annoyed. I'm fine, Alex. Just stressed. Work is crazy. Or, don't be silly. Everything's the same. But everything wasn't the same. It had changed in a deep and frightening way. And the fact that she couldn't, or wouldn't, acknowledge that change was the most terrifying part of all. It felt like I was being gaslight, though I hate that word. Was I imagining things? Was I the one creating this tension? Self-doubt is dangerous. It eats away at your confidence and makes you question reality. I started watching her more closely, listening to her words, her sighs, her expressions. It was draining. I felt like a detective in my own home, searching for clues to a mystery I couldn't even name. Little things started piling up. A strange smell on her clothes, something earthy, not quite a cologne but clearly not hers. Crumpled receipts for coffee or meals with names I didn't recognize. Suddenly, she wanted to join a gym far across town, even though we had a perfectly good one in our building. Each thing by itself was explainable. But together, they painted a picture I didn't want to face. The breaking point came one Friday night. She said she had to work late and would grab dinner near the office. I stayed home, trying to distract myself with a movie, but the silence felt unbearable. Around 11 p.m. she texted, "Just leaving now, exhausted. Going straight to bed. XX. Bae." But maybe 30 minutes later, while scrolling through social media, I saw something that made my heart stop. A friend had tagged Sarah in a photo. It was taken at a popular bar downtown, Nowhere near her office. No work friends. Just Sarah, laughing, head thrown back, standing close to a guy I didn't recognize. His arm was draped around her shoulders. Felt sick. It wasn't even the photo itself. It could have been innocent. But it was the lie. Why tell me she was working late, going straight home when she was out having fun? That simple XX at the end of her text felt like a cruel joke now. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, haunted by the image. Her laugh. His arm. The light. By morning, the dull ache of doubt had hardened into something sharper, painful and clear. I couldn't live like this anymore, trapped in a fog of questions, suspicion and self-blame. I needed the truth. Real answers. Not half-truths or vague excuses. That's when I finally faced the idea I had been avoiding. Hiring a private investigator. Felt dramatic, like something from a cheap novel. But what else could I do? It felt like betrayal, spying on my own wife. But hadn't she already broken our trust, piece by painful piece? The secrecy was suffocating. I needed to breathe again, even if the truth hurt. Making the call was one of the hardest things I've done. I could barely keep my voice steady as I explained everything to the calm person on the other end. Felt ashamed, like I was admitting failure, as a husband and as a man. But I needed to know. I gave the investigator her details, her routine, what she drove, paid the fee. My stomach in knots, and waited. Those first days felt unreal. I went through the motions of life, still talking to Sarah, still showing up at work. But inside I felt like I was outside of my own body. Everything was tainted by the secret I now carried. Someone else was watching her too. Each time my phone buzzed, my heart would race. Was it him? Had he found something? Part of me hoped he'd find nothing, that I'd been wrong, and maybe feel foolish but still have hope for our marriage. Another part of me prayed he'd find proof, anything, to show I wasn't going crazy. The investigator, let's call him Davis, was professional and discreet. He sent brief, detailed updates. Subject observed leaving work at 5:17 p.m. drove to location. Met unidentified male at cafe. Duration, 1 hour 15 minutes. The messages were short and factual. But each one hit me like a hammer against the fragile shell of our life. Why was she meeting someone she never mentioned? Why the secrecy? Then came the first photo. It was blurry, taken from a distance. Sarah was sitting across from a man at a small table outside. I couldn't see his face clearly, but he seemed relaxed, leaning in while she spoke animatedly. Her expression, open and warm, struck me like a blow. That was the look she used to give me. Seeing that connection captured in a stranger's photo, one I had paid for, felt awful. I felt ashamed, dirty even. But I couldn't stop looking. Was it a friend? Colleague? Something more? Davis didn't offer opinions. Just the facts. Place. Faces. No judgment. That part was left to me, and it was breaking me. Here's a simplified, well-mannered, and grammatically polished version of your story segment. I've preserved your emotional arc, the atmosphere of suspicion, heartbreak, and the rising storm of quiet vengeance, while removing repetition and tightening the narrative flow. What was happening to my life? It felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath my feet. The first report from the man I hired was just the beginning of the fall. I braced myself for the next update, a cold dread settling deep within me. What else would he uncover? The days after that first photo blurred into weeks. Life split into two strange layers. On the surface, work deadlines, grocery trips, awkward dinners with Sarah where the silence was louder than any argument. Beneath the surface, constant checks of my secure email, growing anxiety with every notification, and a deepening obsession with Davis's reports. He was thorough, unsettlingly so. Sarah's regular gym visits across town. Frequent lunches with the same unidentified man, 2, sometimes 3 times a week. Always at secluded places, never near her office, never mentioned to me. My appetite faded. Barely slept. I kept replaying old conversations, studying her expressions, trying to reconcile the woman beside me, when she wasn't too tired and sleeping in the guest room, with the one in those reports. Paranoia grew. Was everything a lie? Had she ever loved me? Was our whole life a performance? I thought of confronting her many times. I'd rehearse angry speeches in the car, pleading ones in the shower. But I always stopped myself, partly from fear of what she might say, and partly because Davis warned me not to. If she suspected anything, she'd be more careful. And deep down, a darker reason had started to form. If she truly was doing what I feared, a simple confrontation wouldn't be enough. The deception deserved more than just apologies. Davis's reports became more detailed. He managed clearer photos. The man had a face now, someone I didn't recognize. A relief in some twisted way. He looked ordinary, mid-40s, decently dressed. But the way Sarah looked at him, the touches, the laughter, the intimacy across the table, it was unmistakable. This wasn't business or friendship. Then came the hotel visit. Sarah claimed she was seeing her sister that weekend. But Davis followed her to a boutique hotel outside the city. She checked in alone. An hour later, the same man arrived, cautious, glancing around before slipping inside. Davis didn't wait to see them leave. He didn't have to. The truth was clear. Each report drove another nail into our marriage. I went numb, existing on autopilot. My love for Sarah still lingered beneath the hurt and anger, but it was tangled with pity and contempt. How could she do this to us? Then I received the email that changed everything. The subject line was simple: final report and supporting materials. I waited until Sarah was asleep, if she wasn't pretending, then opened it in the dark. Davis had included a detailed summary, matching timelines and locations with where Sarah said she'd been. The lies were brutal in their clarity, but the attached folder shattered me. High-resolution photos. One from the hotel, capturing him arriving and both of them leaving separately hours later. Audio clips recorded during lunch dates. Her voice was unmistakable. He's just so predictable, you know? There was a pause in her tone, boredom, exasperation. Then she added, "It's comfortable, I guess." A moment later, "No, he has no idea. He trusts me completely. It's almost sad." That word hit me like a blow. Not anger. Not frustration. My trust, our entire foundation, was something she pitted. Not only had she betrayed our vows, but she mocked my loyalty. Her cruelty wasn't in the act. It was in the casual way she dismissed me. Then came the final file, a short video. Likely from Davis's car across the street from a lunch spot. They said goodbye. He said something. She laughed. Then he kissed her. Not a fleeting kiss, a real one. And she kissed him back. Willingly. Eagerly. I watched it 3 times. My vision blurred. I didn't feel heartbreak. Just a vast, icy emptiness. The betrayal wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a choice, a life she had chosen, and she pitied the man she left behind. The numbness soon gave way to cold fury. Not explosive, but a slow, settling rage. The kind that rewrites who you are. She wanted unpredictable. She was about to get it. Confrontation. Useless. I already had the truth. I didn't need more lies or rehearsed tears. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity. She thought I was blind. She mocked my faithfulness. Well, the blind man was waking up, and he saw everything. I planned my next steps carefully. I found the best divorce lawyer I could. Quietly separated our finances, moved my income, gathered documents. Around Sarah, I acted as if nothing had changed. If anything, I was warmer. Let her believe she had me fooled. Let her bask in the illusion. The coldness inside me frightened me, but it also gave me strength. The pain didn't disappear, just became focused. I was no longer ending a marriage. I was making sure she understood exactly what she had done. I had the full report, photos, audio, video, on an encrypted drive. At dinner, I watched her smile and complain about work. Fake grin. Fake stress. And I felt calm. The storm she created was about to break. She was still standing in its path. And I held the trigger. It was almost over. The reckoning was about to begin. The cold fury inside me didn't fade. It gathered, hardening into a sharp point of clarity. She thought this was a game and that she was winning. Fine. Let's play the final round. I chose a Sunday morning. Felt right. Sundays used to be our day. Lazy breakfasts, shared newspapers, maybe a stroll in the park. A symbol of the calm life we built, which she had quietly torn apart. She came downstairs late, yawning, dressed in her favorite sweats, looking for all the world like the woman I had loved for 10 years. For a moment, just a second, my heart ached with the memory of that love. Then I remembered the audio clip. The ache vanished. Ice took its place. "Morning," she said, heading to the coffee machine. "Sleep okay?" "Like a log," I replied, keeping my voice even. Too even, maybe. I sat at the kitchen table. My laptop was open. Davis's final report ready and waiting. The full, awful truth compiled and confirmed. She poured her coffee, added a splash of milk like always. "Big plans today?" she asked casually, leaning against the counter. "Actually, yeah," I said, looking up. "I thought we could finally have that talk. The one we keep avoiding." A flicker of unease passed over her face. Quickly hidden. "Oh. About what?" "About us, Sarah," I said quietly. "About why you've been distant. Why you're always working late. Why you suddenly need so much space." She sighed, annoyed. "Alex, not this again. I told you, work's been insane." "Stop." I didn't raise my voice, but the word cut through the room. She blinked. "Just stop lying." The air shifted. Her eyes widened just a little. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the late nights that weren't spent at work," I said, leaning in slightly. "The lunch dates at cafes across town. The gym I never knew you joined. The weekend trips that weren't to your sisters." Each word landed like a stone. Her face paled. She swallowed. I don't know what you mean." "You're not making any sense." Denial. Predictable. I clicked the mouse and turned the laptop toward her. Photo 1, her and him laughing at a cafe. He gasped. "What? Where did you get that?" "Does it matter?" Blick. The hotel entrance. Blick. Him arriving. Blick. Them leaving hours later. Blick. A kiss. Then the video played, silent, damning. He stared. Her coffee sat forgotten on the counter. The color drained from her face. Her eyes moved from the screen to mine, searching for what? An excuse. An escape. There wasn't one. "I know, Sarah," I said, my voice cold. "I know everything." She crumbled, collapsed onto a stool, buried her face in her hands. The sobs came hard, gut-wrenching, guilt-ridden. A part of me, the part that remembered loving her, felt a flicker of pity. But it drowned beneath the sound of her voice on that recording. How did you find out?" she choked out. "I hired someone," I said flatly. "When you wouldn't talk. When the lies piled up. I needed the truth." Her head snapped up. You spied on me." The accusation was absurd, given everything. But it was all she had. "You gave me no choice," I said, anger rising. "You built a fortress of lies. I just found a way to see over the walls. And the view. It isn't pretty." Paused, letting it land. "Tell me about him." What followed was messy. Tears, excuses, then admissions. He was a consultant. Just happened. She felt unseen. The irony burned. She said she never meant to hurt me. The usual script. But the words rang hollow, bouncing off the hard wall of evidence. "You didn't mean to hurt me," I repeated quietly. "You stood there every day, looked me in the eye and lied. You pitted me behind my back while you betrayed me. You think that doesn't hurt?" She flinched. "Alex, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake." "Mistake?" I almost laughed. "A mistake is forgetting milk. Taking the wrong exit. This was a campaign, Sarah. A decision you made every day for months." He stood. Abruptly. He jumped. "I've spoken to a lawyer." Her eyes widened. Panic. Lawyer. No, Alex. Please. I'll end it with him. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I looked at her. Really looked. Not with love. With clarity. She wasn't desperate for me. She was afraid of the fallout. Afraid of losing the comfort she had taken for granted. There's nothing left to fix, I said. You burned it all down. And sorry won't rebuild ashes. I walked to the counter. Picked up the envelope. Divorce papers, I said. Drawn up already. They're more generous than you deserve. Get a lawyer. Look them over. She stared at them like they were poisonous. Please don't do this. It's already done, I said, voice flat. I looked around the kitchen, our kitchen. It didn't feel like mine anymore. I'll be moving out today. Movers are coming later this week for the rest. You can stay for now, until the settlement's figured out. I turned to leave. Where will you go? She sobbed. I stopped at the doorway. Somewhere I'm not pitted, I said. Somewhere I can breathe. Leaving that house wasn't triumphant. Hurt. Deeply. But beneath the pain was something else, relief. Clarity. Reclamation. The husband who once ignored the signs had finally stood up. And he chose himself. The aftermath wasn't easy. Divorce never is. There were lawyers. Paperwork. Uncomfortable meetings about who gets what. Sarah reached out, apologies, sometimes angry, sometimes pleading. But I kept my distance. Mostly through lawyers. I couldn't hear her voice without reopening the wound. Months passed. The divorce is final. I have my own place. Smaller, simpler. But it's mine. Healing is slow. Some days are okay. Some days the ghost of my old life haunts me. But the emptiness is fading. Slowly. I've reconnected with work, with friends, with hobbies I'd forgotten. Do I feel satisfaction? Not in revenge. But in truth. In standing up. In refusing to live a lie. I reclaimed my story. From what I hear, things didn't last with the other guy. The thrill died in the daylight. He wasn't interested in shouldering the wreckage. She traded a decade for a fantasy. And reality crushed it. She lives with her choices. I live with the scars. Hiring that investigator, yes, it ended my marriage. But it also saved me. From wasting more years on a lie. Hurt. But it set me free. Because trust, once broken like that, is rarely rebuilt. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Even when it rips you apart. Even when it means starting over from zero. It's not giving up. It's choosing peace. It's choosing yourself. That's not sad. That's survival. That's the beginning of something real.